last names of your friends? Next time you go to Linda Peck, tell her, Linda, I just heard that you guys are the chosen people. See how she reacts.
That makes her better.
What?
That makes her better.
Okay, continue, please.
This was the original idea behind the line that was censored out of the prayer. For they bow down low to vanity and emptiness and pray to a God who does not save.
Okay, so listen now, a divorce. Originally, this prayer had an addition sentence. For they bow down low to vanity. What do you mean them? You guys. So people who are not Jewish. For they bow down low to vanity and emptiness and pray to a God who does not save. Oh, so guess what? We were smart. We removed it from our prayers. Because this is really insulting. Because you guys believe in a God that saves. This is, don't you know, Jesus saves, Moses invests. It's a sticker. It's a sticker in cars.
I haven't seen that.
It's fantastic.
Great. I love it.
I will never put it there. Because this will perpetuate the notion that Jews are only about money. So I hear the sentence, and I'm running away from that kind of sentence. You see what bothers Jews? So a guy that can sell now his football team for $4 billion is involved in this crap. Yeah, the value of the New England team, he bought it for $200 million, now it's $4 billion. It's all wrong. This is the false gods we have. We created those false gods. It's our making. Okay. So
I'm hung up on
what?
the concept of saving. I don't think of that as a Jewish construct.
No, it's not a
save.
Jewish contract.
So it's
It's
just
about the
making
Gentiles.
fun of the Gentiles.
No, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's not making fun. It's
No,
but that's
sarcastic,
that's
yeah.
what Christianity talk a lot
Oh, yeah.
about.
Right.
Jesus saves. It's like my God doesn't save. What's going on there? I mean, we talked already about New Testament, Old Testament language. There is saving in my God too. When I perform or I do those commandments that He puts upon me, every commandment that I do, from giving charity to eating the right food and not having pork, I never had in my life pork. Now, I don't have the pork not because there's a commandment, because I know from my history that Jews were forced to eat pork in order to humiliate them. Oh yeah, this was part of the torture by multiplicity of generation. I don't eat pork because of that. Not because God told me that pork is not tasty. Actually, I look at Jews in front of me. That's the worst. I go to a restaurant with some friends. They order things that are not kosher. They don't understand. They don't understand that if they have some humility in them, they will not do it if I'm there. Is it bothering me? Yeah, because I just mentioned it. But I also am aware that they can order whatever they want. But why would someone that knows who I am order this kind of food? You understand the dilemma there. Do you have still a problem with saving? I can't
No,
believe.
I don't like the word save anyway. So I just wondered if it was.
No, but so why is it used so much in Christianity? What's this?
Beats me.
Yeah?
No,
No.
I can give you reasons. But it doesn't
I
resonate.
like the struggle that you have with the word saving, which is so important in the Christian worship language and doesn't exist in Judaism.
Okay, thank you.
So
the
we
double
don't-
negative there threw me off. I thought it's in Judaism? Okay.
No, but this was to mock you guys.
Yeah, I got it.
This paragraph that was omitted and taken away. Can you imagine the discussions the night before omitting this paragraph? I would love to be a fly on the wall. Are we keeping it to denigrate Christianity? I mean, we had to struggle too in Judaism. if we are chosen, you see what chosenness can do to you. You become completely involved in triumphalism and all the rest. This is the struggle that we are experiencing now with Islam. I mean, I think Jews and Christians are fine. I think that our relationship is going to be fantastic. We forgot about what you did to us during the Crusades. We forgot the Holocaust. Not really, but I'm saying we in America have a relationship with the Christian community, not with all the Christians. We cannot handle the one that are coming at 3 o'clock on Friday, knocking on that door and asking us to convert. You guys are not doing it. I didn't see. When was the last time you came to me to try to convert me? Oh, so I like you because of that. But there are other groups in Christianity that constantly are knocking on the door. And they think that America is a Christian country. Come on, you know that. Evangelical Christianity can be tough in communicating with Jews. Do you know that, what's the name of the big one on Dodge? Gate? Lifegate. You know that he has a room specially dedicated in the church to pray for the Jews. He has a room. How do I know this? Because after the movie, The Temptation of Christ, I invited him to Temple Israel to have a discussion about the movie. Because the movie, I think, done by, what's his name? Mel Gibson. I think it was basically full of anti-Semitic images that were purposely put there because both Gibson and his father belong to a Christianity that is a lot more fundamental and hopefully, thank God, one day will disappear.
They're Holocaust deniers, both of them.
Of course. And do you think I like the Mormons who added names of Holocaust victims to their list so they can pray for them? You know how denigrating it is when someone prays about deaf Holocaust people to the Jew? You want me to have dialogue with Mormons? Well, we have first of all to arrange few things before that. Stop praying for us. Stop praying for dead victims of the Holocaust because that's what is so essential for your theology. So I invited him to Temple to have a discussion about the film. So I met him a few times personally, and he, of course, declined because he will never do this. But he told me that conversation, that have a room, that they pray for the Jews, and I should feel good about it. It's language. There was a reason why we connected with you guys. Thank you for that reason, for the many reasons. I want to just to bring a few lines from the Bible. Okay, let's go to the theology, please. Sharon, you want to take theology?
Theology? Sure.
Which is Dorf.
Okay.
So he starts with the same verse from the text. Go on.
Adonai, our God, we therefore hope to perfect the world.
Yeah, so this is the final prayer. So if I see myself as a partner with God, I know that my job with you is to repair the world. Go on.
Many people know just the first paragraph of the
Aleinu.
because it is usually sung.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית. So there's a melody. So melody is helpful for people to memorize the text. Go on.
But the thrust of the prayer appears here in the second paragraph, because from the first paragraph, God is the creator.
Okay, now go to page 138.
Okay, God is creator of the universe, who also singled us out from all the nations of the earth. It follows here that we can expect the world to be perfected under God's reign. This is the first instance of the phrase
Tikkun olam.
Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun olam is mending the world. Is an essential Jewish theological concept in Judaism. mending the world. Tikkun means to mend, to fix, to repair. So if I want to repair my bike, which I don't drive, I'm going to letaken. I'm going to fix, mend it. Okay, go on. Olam, what's olam? Those are two words that you guys should know. The beginning of your Hebrew training. Olam is the world. The world. Tikkun olam, the repairing, the mending of the world. This is our job, guys. Your job and our job. And we're going to do it better when we are together. Go on.
Here, though, we pray that God, not we, will perfect the world. God will do so by getting all nations to recognize his sovereignty. In the 16th century, Isaac Luria,
And Isaac Luria, a name from the Jewish mysticism, said what?
he gave the phrase tikkun olam a different meaning, according to which human beings who observe commandments thereby fix the brokenness of the world, and even fix God, who is broken too. Only recently has the phrase come to mean a Jewish mission to fix the world through social actions specifically.
Do you guys think that is there a possibility in your philosophy, in your theology, that God is broken and not perfect?
You know, when that came up before, that maybe the last time you had classes,
I'm sure I
that
mentioned
was
it.
that was brand new for me. That God is broken too, and I keep thinking.
How about the world broken? Is the world broken easier for you than saying God is broken?
Well, I hold people responsible for the brokenness of the world.
Oh my God, totally.
So that's a hard concept for me to think of. God is broken too. That's
I
a
think
whole new
there's-
concept.
I think there's a theological strain, though, that says we break God, in that, you know, that's part of the Christ thing, is that the way humanity treated him
And I think
was,
It's really different from.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
and in terms of is there, can we encompass the idea that God is broken? I think the one thing that most of this tradition of Christianity believes is that we cannot create a box big enough to have God fit in it. So we can imagine God anything.
If we are created in God's image and we are not perfect, is it possible that God is still being created? You see,
It is, yeah, that is possible. That's what I'm saying, is that has stayed with me in thinking about it and wondering about it, because it's a whole new concept.
So why can't you call me and we could go for coffee and help you? So you have not been sleeping for a while because of that?
It's been difficult, yeah. I'm up at night.
That's the purpose of the class.
Yeah.
Guys, if there are some things that are not clear, 1 cup of coffee can save it. I don't demand a lot. But yeah, it's you will not find that term, tikkun olam, used as much in Orthodox Judaism because of the same idea. They believe that God is perfect and there's no brokenness in God. And by the way, I don't see a lot of brokenness in God. I definitely see a lot more brokenness in the world, and that's what I deal with. This has to be fixed. Now, this Isaac Luria, who is the father of mysticism, in a way, what he did in Israel, Tzfat. Here's the world of the mystics. I need to put this aside for a second. The world of the mystics and their creation story was different. They believed that God, in God's love for us, shrunk himself and allowed for the space that he was out of for us to be created, the world to be created. Because once upon a time, the whole world was full of God. There was no room for any kind of creation. And God shrunk himself in his love for us, or her love for us, and created the world. Now, something went wrong. And this can be connected to the Big Bang. They love this stuff. What happened to the light that was left in the space that God shrunk himself from? There was a light, divine light. That light was put into vessels. But the light was so strong, the extra light that was still in a place where was empty from God, that light broke the vessels. And as a result, the whole world is filled now with shards and sparks. Shards that are physical and sparks that are divine. The role of humanity is to try to gather back the light into the vessels. But except now, it's mixed with the shards. So that's the brokenness. The brokenness they speak about is the brokenness that occur as a result of the light being spread all over the place. You don't find the light because sometimes the lights are connected to the shards. Sometimes we see something ugly and we say shards, but we need to come closer because maybe there are sparks involved with the shards.
I love that imagery.
No, but the difficulty is, who are your partners in trying to find the light? The idea is to try to bring the light together. Because the light that we have now peering through the drapes, this is not the original light of creation. This is a secondary light, a lot lousy than the first light. What is the role of the just people in the world? What is our role? Our role is to try to get back to the original light of God's world because it was beautiful. How do I bring light to the world? By collecting the sparks. By finding, even in the material, the spark. This is a chair? No, it's a lot more than a chair. This mysticism philosophy says. What is more than a chair? I see a chair, definitely material, but wait a minute, let's start thinking. The chair can inhabit someone that sits around the table that studies God's world. Wow. So the chair that has this physical gift has a lot more than just the gift that the eye meets. You see, this world is a lot more complicated. There are things that we see and not see. We run to judgment of a person because we don't see all the rest of the sparks that exist in him. So what I did this morning with the owner of the New England, it was terrible what I did. Terrible. Because I know he gave $1 million to the campaign for Donald Trump. That's another reason why he's awful. You see, I can escape from my humanness. I want to live always with the sparks. But it requires work. This is what the meaning of being a partner with God in the unfolding story of creation. For me, the story of creation is an ongoing story. I don't read the Bible as it happened, creation happened once, and that's it. Are you kidding? If God is all-knowing and all-capable, creation is continuing. Every time you see a baby born, creation is on. Every time you see someone all dying, creation is on. Creation is going non-stop. And sometimes even the light that we exist, that we are looking at, is too strong. Other times when that light comes your way and you cannot bear looking at it. So, back to the Bible. So the Old Testament contains a lot more than one can handle. And God, in God's wisdom, created masks and clothing for the words of the Bible. That only if you study, maybe some of the masks, some of the covering can be lifted, and then you say, oh my God, this is what was meant in that verse. You can do the same with the Gospels. I mean, that's the role of your ministers. All two of them there and one else that is not here. The role of the clergy is to uncover and remove some of the clothing that is there to protect us from the strength of the light. It's too much for us. We cannot handle it. That was my reaction when you guys will say to a Jew, you're part of the chosen. You know how heavy this is? You're part of the chosen people. Oh my God, what do I do with that phrase? How do I dissect it? How do I unpack it? What exactly are your expectations from me when you say that? It's complicated. Those words in the Bible were there just to help us understand a little bit. We only understand a little bit of the gospel and the meaning of the gospel, or the meaning of the book of Exodus, or the Quran. All three groups, all three religions have a mystical trend. What is the mystical trend of Christianity, guys? Hey.
It is mystical. It's called mystical.
It's called what?
It's just the mystics.
The mystics.
Yeah.
So how is the mysticism of Christianity being brought to the knowledge of the people here?
Through poets and readings and
Authors.
and music and art. Music and art.
Beautiful. That interprets text. The music, yeah. Yeah, of course. Judaism has the music. The Muslims have the Sufi tradition, which is extremely mystical. And so all three religions have a mystical component that will be amazing for the three of us, or whatever. I'm retired. But for the clergy, at Temple Israel, to be invited to, can you imagine the classes on mystical faith that can go on here? And then realizing after the class that, oh my God, I am a partner with God in the unfolding story of creation. Yes? Did I make it a little bit easier? Are you going to sleep tonight, or I need to come and sing you some lullabies?
Okay, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll text you. But I'm oversimplifying a little bit here, but the first thing I felt in this church the first time I visited was this sort of, it's hard to explain, but this excitement and joy. So for a long time now, I've been looking at, I know there are Christian churches that focus only on this, we're broken, this is broken, the world is broken, everything's broken, the shards, and there's a forgetting about the spark. So I feel like here, in a lot of different ways, the spark is emphasized, the joy is emphasized.
Absolutely.
And it makes a huge difference.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And, that doesn't exist in, my friend that lives in Boulder, Colorado, there's a huge church that
Mega
all they
church.
talk about is brokenness.
No, and then they collect the money.
And then they collect the money
Yeah.
to heal that or whatever it is they do, but I thought, I just would have to stay home because that's not the
Can you
whole
record
thing.
this wonderful presentation and put it on your,
Aren't we recording it right now?
Oh my God, scary. But it wasn't, no, but it's, why me? The camera needs to be turned around.
Oh, yeah.
By the way,
Yes.
this is exactly the rabbinate I selected for myself. I had a choice to continue preaching about the Holocaust nonstop and get all the Jews to feel sad, depressed. I brought the joy from the place where I was born. So the joy, for example, this is the difference between American Jews and Israeli Jews. Despite the wars in Israel, there is vibrancy, there is a joy in which we need to deal now because there is a killing of Palestinians that none of us wants to do. So how do you stay in the midst of joy? Because I think this is where God wants us to celebrate. Why would God create a world for all of us to be miserable, to be depressed all the time? I mean, we need some depression to help some people have professions.
We'd rather not have the profession.
I totally agree. How about canceling it and just living as a religious person with this devotion, this zeal, this ability to always burst in songs? That's the kind of Judaism that I tried to bring to Temple Israel. And I think this results in what we're doing. I think this tri-faith initiative is about the joy, about being able to live with someone else and finding the commonality. That's a lifelong dream that hopefully, with the help, with this kind of attitude of trying to find the joy and finding the sparks, but also finding the shards. So you cannot have just the sparks. You need to dig them out. You need to scratch the shard to discover the light. That's what we need to be committed for. Social justice in the tri-faith need to be imagined completely. Actually, all the aspects of our faith need to be dug in and try to figure out what we do. To have people that are retired from their positions and still not to get them engaged in something, I mean, there'll be a lot of work to do. Who is ready for that work? Yeah. That's the purpose, that's the journey of the religious, pious person. All of us can be pious. It depends on what we do. And how do we bring God's existence in the world into our own daily life. I'm not saying to do it every hour. Take a break and go for vacation sometimes. But this is what we need to do in this world. That was a long speech. Anyway, come on. It's a little bit after 11:30. I don't have any place to go. So you guys don't have any place to go. Look outside. It's miserable. So talk to me. Reflect on this kind of a dialogue between. Yeah.
Back when we were talking about whether God is perfect or broken, my thoughts were, I personally don't believe God is either. I think brokenness and perfection are human qualities, and since I don't think God is human, I don't think she or he is necessarily at this point. I've just come to the sort of surrendering to, I can't fathom God. God is greater than my mind.
Mazel tov.
Yeah.
Mazel tov. You should celebrate. L'chaim to your life. Yeah. We can talk about God anyway. I'm just using terms that are human in order to sharpen the conversation. But I totally agree. God is laughing now. I'm sure she's sitting there laughing. Who are those stupid people that think they know anything about me? Totally.
They should be cleaning their houses.
Go home and clean your houses and shovel the snow. Yeah, I mean, this is where we are. we lack the language, and so we use languages that are not clear to anyone because of the confusion. What else? You forgot to take picture the last 50 minutes. Without the flash. Well, talk to me.
Without a flash. I know that I'm never going to understand God, and I'm pretty much okay with that.
Excellent. How about clapping hands? This is like AA meeting. We should create AA meeting for God, talking about that, because we are so small here. That's wonderful. That's why there's nothing to look at those churches that in Colorado. I'm sure that some good work is done there, but one should look for happy churches and happy synagogues and happy mosques that still can offer comfort and consolation and a hug.
Well, look at our prayer chain here. I mean, stuff happens to all of us, you know,
Yeah.
you say it, unhappy, it's not happy events, etc. So
Less
I guess
joyous.
I'm talking about, less joyous, but I'm just talking about a balance of that, I think, is just so important.
Yeah, for
To
example,
look at the joy, to
you guys,
talk about it.
I'm giving you 1 month to teach all the Jews about chain prayer. We don't know what the hell you're talking about. No, I know what you're talking about. But most of the Jews, so we have Misha Berach. We have a prayer at the end of the service mentioning names of people that are in need of a prayer. So we introduced this about 7 years ago. But during the week, no one prays for them. How come? So we need to learn. You guys have so many things to teach us. And then maybe all of us will be chosen. There's such a gap. I mean, I looked at your bulletin that I'm getting, and I'm looking at the report that you delivered at the end of the year. Oh my God. Hundreds of pages of covering everything. I show it to some of my leadership. They laughed. They were laughing. They don't. We have never seen such a work. So we are coming to this marriage in order to become better. And so every faith community will have to find out what they have that they can share with. And we all have things to share. Especially the study. The learning, the devotion to study is extremely high in us, in the temple. It took years to create a program for adult learning and bring scholars, and you already have this happening with the faith. I remember coming to those faith, what's the name?
Center for Faith.
Center for Faith. Amazing stuff that I learned coming here at 7 o'clock on Thursdays sometimes. I mean, those are the kind of things we need to work for the benefit of everyone. We know nothing about Christianity, guys. Nothing. Really. I mean, I don't think there is any Jew that read even 5 lines in any of the Gospels. Part of it was because we're still dealing with the anger that we have. Why would I read text that really is not comfortable? It's not comfortable because you never read it. So I think it will be important to create classes similar to what you allowed me to do here. Thank you, Chris. But it has to happen in all the other places. It will take some time. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight.
We thank you for having these classes.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You gave me something to be busy with. It's such a gift. I had concern about what I'm gonna do when I'm retired. I don't have this concern. It's fantastic. I have other concerns. You always have concerns. We're human. Yeah. Any other? No one wants to go out. Come on, it's cold, miserable.
One of the things that, when we started out with the schmuck, was that kept me up one night. I'm sorry, you're not responsible.
Only one night.
Well,
I'm so depressed
one night
now.
for sure. But I woke up thinking about all of it, putting it all together in my head. And,
Of course.
one of my ideas, I guess I just love the idea that you have a bit of text and it's surrounded by all these opinions. And I thought of those opinions as the kinds of questions we all have about the things we deal with as Christians. And that would be the fear of saying, what if we looked at it this way? Why not think of this in another way? You know, we're all afraid of these people who are so certain that.
Yeah, but they're not here.
No, they're not here.
So what is the fear? Where's the fear coming from?
Well, I guess that's why I'm here, because I don't feel afraid in this group.
Group,
I think
yeah.
we're afraid of the kinds of damaged people who think that way.
I
are
totally
doing.
agree. That should be.
But what I loved about all of this was just the idea that this constant study and the constant. I love the question, what if? What if we looked at it this way? What
Beautiful.
if we did this differently? Which is what this is.
So why can't you have a class? What if? A class
I think
named
we need
What
to
If,
look at-
and you have the clergy there
Mhm.
in a very quiet voice, not dominating the conversation, and having conversation among you.
Chris and Eric do this all the time. They give us other ways of thinking.
Oh my
We're all doing it.
Yeah, we have to do it.
Thank you.
We have to do it,
But
yeah.
you know that there are people who don't, because they're afraid that if they think about things from a different point of view, it may destroy some of the things that they've come
But
to
those
great
people
cause
are going
today.
to leave the church, and
No,
then
I
you'll
know,
have
but
only the
from
people that.
anywhere, you know, they've got this right here, and they've been comfortable with it all their life. Why would they throw anything else into the pot?
Because it's
Because-
fantastic.
I know, but they don't. So they
That's what gives taste to life.
They get worried.
Yeah. Those places should not be a place of people who are worried. It should be the joy that you are looking for. Why can't we discuss everything out of joy? Let's find out what else. And I'm sure you can create a document like this with different views of different theologians. And you have a lot of Christian theologians because it's so confusing. And you can invite those kind of speakers also. Yeah.
Where do our Muslim neighbors stand?
Well, I have been invited once to teach there. So they need to cope with me and with other clergy. So I thought I wanted to teach one day about Moses, and they invited me to teach about Moses as Moses appears in the Old Testament. Because they have some information about Moses in the Quran, but it's not as developed. Because for the Jews, Moses is Moses, the hero. 40 years, a lot of stuff about Moses. And I started teaching, I had my Bible, and something that was giving me half an hour ended up 2.5 hours. And no one left the room. But since then, they need to do some internal conversation in the level of the leadership. Not that I didn't offer, believe me, I offered. And we definitely need to have, we're not working, I suggested, Chris, last time when we had a retreat,
Yeah.
Will, you remember, I said it would be wonderful to get two hours a week in each other building for the clergy. So Monday, the two of them, or maybe one of them, will be at the mosque, open for Muslims to come to the room or to come. I'm sure there'll be Turkish coffee, so you know, it'll be tasty, some food. He's very good about putting food.
Yes.
Yeah, they are. Their food is a lot better than all of us. That was the sadness of canceling the taste on Sunday. You think I was crying about not seeing my clergy? I was crying about the food that I'm not going to eat. So if they put the food there, and you have the clergy from the different places, and also to have like a room, maybe even to I know rooms, it's all narrow now and limited, but to find a nice place for them to host people from the different communities, that'll be fantastic. For Temple Israel to have on Wednesday maybe a Muslim clergy, and then on Thursday Christian. It doesn't have to be every week. We can do it every 2 weeks. We can work out all the details. But for people to come and ask questions. So I don't think they're there yet. You guys are, I think part of the relationship is because we have a little bit more time to have the relationship. I came 30 years ago, already 30 years ago, I had a relationship with some of your ministers because I saw what kind of a church this is. So I've known you, some of you, for a long time. That's what has to be done. But that'll be the leadership of the Tri-Faith sitting down seriously, and the input from the clergy. My God, in the retreat that we had for 2 days, we had so many ideas. Those ideas have to be talking to the leadership. We have lay leadership that needs to be also convinced that this is good for them. I know that you guys will be there in classes. I know that. There's something that attracted you to come to the class, and you're interested in learning more and asking, what if? So we Jews don't have that question anymore because we are trained to study and to learn. And you constantly are telling me about this dialectic in Jewish study. I mean, we nurse the milk from our mothers with the ability to already ask questions. There's nothing that you cannot ask in Judaism. Some of the converts that came to Judaism came because of that. They couldn't get the answer, don't ask. They were Catholics, they were all kind of evangelical. They were attracted to Judaism because you can ask everything. And then that's the text always with commentary, always the Hebrew, always the English, so you can penetrate. Because the Hebrew is a stumbling block for many Jews. Because they don't know Hebrew. They learn a few phrases so they can do it on a bar mitzvah. It's pathetic. I have to tell you, when I came to Temple Israel 30 years ago, I discovered a completely terrible transgression. Because of the Hebrew that was so poorly delivered to the kids, they will put a piece of paper on the Torah scroll that had English transliteration. So they'll be faking it, lying on the day of their bar mitzvah by reading Hebrew in English letters. I said, oh my God. And that was the end of it. And then I brought more Hebrew teachers to teach, to be able to. And then I also said, no Las Vegas nights, and some people left. And guess what? They have the holiday of Purim now, and they're bringing Las Vegas back. Hey, I'm okay with this. I'm not there anymore. Screw them.
That's on video now.
I said it when I was working there. I mean, it's so interesting. I was against putting wine on bar mitzvah celebrations. We have kids, and I didn't want kids to be exposed to the possibility of having wine on the meal of the buffet on the bar mitzvah, which are beautiful buffets. Those of you who have them, they brought the wine back now. It's all okay. It's not my game anymore. I'm okay with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also eliminated the clapping of the hands at the end of the sermon.
I like it. I feel like.
I said,
eliminate that.
what is this? It's a show? You clap hands after a sermon? No clapping here anymore.
Okay.
And here definitely. I went to a bar mitzvah and there was clapping. So I don't know. I'm a teacher. You guys are students. I value you more than anything else. You're the way you help me do what I do, what I love. And that's what Rabbi is. Rabbi is a teacher. That's the meaning. He's not a performer. So stop clapping hands. Oh, nice, nice. Have a warm week, guys, I hope.
I guess, yeah, I could do without it.
So we continue now with another part of the liturgy. Remember what we are doing. And if not, I'll remind you. I mean, it's okay. It's so frozen this morning, the brain and everything else. I'm bringing material that definitely with the Shema. Remember the Shema? Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. This is something that for sure was recited by Jesus. I don't have any doubts. Scholars don't have any doubts about this. Because he knew the Shema, and he was a nice Jewish kid that needed to listen to his mother all the time. So I'm sure she trained him to be able to say it anytime, during the day, during the night, before he goes to sleep. So the Shema is an integral part of the Jewish faith. Today, this has a little bit more controversy about if Jesus was reciting this or not. We'll leave the discussion for the scholars. I still think that there is a lot of material, a lot of knowledge to gain from this paragraph. So this is the last prayer in a Jewish service. Correction, the last prayer is usually the mourner's Kaddish. So every Jewish service ends up with a prayer that elevates life, and it's called the memorial part, the orphan prayer, the Kaddish. Kaddish comes from another root, Kadosh. What's Kadosh in Hebrew? Holy, 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 holy. Kadosh, 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 from the language of the prophet. So Kaddish is a prayer about life, and you recite it at the end, and it's called a mourner's prayer, which is an important prayer for the mourners and for the congregation to recite a prayer extolling life in the midst of their grief. So the prayer doesn't talk at all about death and dying, but it talks about how wonderful life is. So the Jewish prayers always end with a mourner's Kaddish to be able to remember again why we need to praise God for the life. So you go through the service and you have a place to insert the name of the person that died, your relative. Sometimes they hear it the rabbi reads the names of the deceased of the week. And we don't only read the deceased of the week, but we also mention names of people that died in previous years. So at Temple Israel, a congregation that is going to celebrate in 2 years, 150 years, you can imagine how long the list is. So some congregations, of course, decided just to print them in a supplement without reciting all the names. Oh my God, what a mistake. What a mistake. It seems that when a rabbi utters the names of the deceased, it's holier than just if you put it on a supplement. I mean, we have some Jewish craziness like you have in your religion, and we have to deal with this. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming.
We're glad to be here.
So this is the prayer before, and I would like, first of all, to be able to read the entire prayer, and then we'll delve into the commentary. Would you like to honor us by reading today? Yeah, so part of the surprise for you, from time to time you'll have to read. We share the reading, but welcome. We must praise.
We must?
Yeah.
We must praise the Master of all and render greatness to the Creator of the universe, who did not make us like the nations of the lands, and did not place us like the families of the earth, who did not make our lot like theirs, or our destiny like all of them.
Okay, so this is one of the most triumphalist prayer in Jewish tradition. Thank you for not making me a Gentile, basically. That's what it says. Yeah, that's what it says. By the way, classical Reform prayer book omitted this because you don't live in Germany in 1938 and you recite this like this. What can be the problem? A gas chamber can be the problem, or a concentration camp. So it's very interesting to watch the development of Jewish prayer book and to see at different times where you omit, at different times you add, depends on the level of what? Physical comfort. When I'm threatened, I will remove this prayer. Poland, it's a whole discussion now if the Polish people were involved in anti-Semitic. I mean, it's very complicated and very, very sensitive discussion. But how much the Poles helped the Germans in executing their final solution for the Jews. So the Poles are tired of hearing that they have to be blamed for that. Yeah, I mean, you can, and the Jews love to say it. Because 3 million Jews disappeared after the Holocaust from Poland. They were all killed. And so when you have this tragedy of 3 million in your face, it's hard to forget about this and not mentioning the role of the Poles in helping and assisting the Germans in that execution. So, so let's go over from the simple linguistic point. It doesn't say really why we should be so happy about not being Gentiles. But what do you think is, what can be the underlying theology underneath this?
We're the chosen people.
We have a specific role to play in God's world, and we are happy for being given that role. We are, you don't see the word chosen, yeah. Sometimes we have an additional prayer in Jewish tradition. God, can you for a while choose someone else? we are done being chosen. No, we don't have this. It's only on Fiddler on the Roof when he asked for the Tsar to be kept as far as possible. People all know this from the Fiddler on the Roof. It's amazing. People that never read the Bible know Fiddler on the Roof. What a great quality of education. Just kidding. I'm a little sarcastic this morning. Maybe the cold weather did it. So, so thank you, God, the Creator, that they didn't make us like the other and gave us additional yoke. It doesn't say yoke, additional role to play in this world. So that's why the chosenness, it's something Jews don't like to talk about. First of all, because they don't believe they're chosen for anything. It's very interesting when I bring this topic of chosenness, and I taught this and I preached about this to Jews, they feel uncomfortable with this conversation because they have you as their neighbors. And so, what are we talking about chosenness? And then, what are we chosen for? That's the other reason why they don't want to talk about this. But it's part of the Jewish theology. Am I chosen? I like always to talk about the fact that maybe we chose to read God's mind. We chose to read God's mind like you are choosing to read God's mind. And of course, we all fail because we can never do it. We just imagine what God wants from us. Really? Do we know what God wants from us? Or we mention it, or we define what God wants from us as a result of what we want to do. It's a lot more complicated when everyone creates their own personal religion. Then how do you talk about and bring communities together when everyone thinks God wants something else from us? Who did not make our lot like theirs? Maybe this is a line that expresses some jealousy for not having a comfortable, quiet, peaceful life. That's what you came to me and you said to me that the Mennonites like Jews because we have something in common, suffering. Who wants to have suffering as a common language with other people? And then, or our destiny like all of them, all of the other families of the earth. And then comes, so this is an opening segment. Thank you, God, for making us different. And then continue reading. We bow
down low in grateful acknowledgement before the King over the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He.
Yeah, in case you want to insert some, like Queen Elizabeth, you can. It's the King of Kings of all the kings. Goes back a little bit to the Pharaoh dilemma. Wasn't it interesting how Moses brought all of the Israelites to become slaves again, but this time to God, not to a king of flesh and blood. Hey, come after me. I have a surprise for you. We're going to redeem you tonight from Egypt. I'm going to bring you to Sinai, and then you're going to become slaves again. He didn't say that. Smart man he was. How are we slaves to God? I know none of us like that word, slaves. But when you become a witness to God's creation, when you become a witness to God's work in the world, guess what? You are limited. Some of your freedom is gone. This is why when, for example, the conversation among Jews now is about the owner of the New England Patriots. Why? Because if you are caught in that place, you are not a witness to God's existence in the world. How come? This is not what God wants you to do. Jews can be extremely harsh on other Jews. Well, if I see him, I'm not going to do it in the first few minutes, but I will definitely have a question for him. What in the hell you're doing there? Because the conversation is out already. By the way, wait till you see the list of the other 200 people. You'll be amazed. Some of us have some information. We Jews There are other Jews there. We know you can't keep secrets from Jews. We're so well connected that you know everyone that is from your tribe visiting that place. It was a tough weekend for some of us who take all this seriously. Do you guys have the same fear about people from your tribe? Yeah. Yeah, I discovered many years ago that black Americans, also when a black person is caught in some kind of a disaster, unethical event, they feel the same. By the way, Italians too. Mention mafia to Italians.
Hey.
I love this. Beautiful. Hey, I'm gonna kill you after the class. Yeah. But this is beautiful. I'm sorry if I offended you. No, but I think minority groups are a lot more sensitive to those aspects than white America. This is some of the discussion that is taking place as a result of who is sitting in the White House. Brown, the color brown that he doesn't like, and the connection between the color brown and the immigrants. Continue, please.
For he spreads out the sky and establishes the earth, and his majestic abode is in the sky above, and his mighty dwelling place is the lofty heights.
Okay, so where's God in this prayer? God is so far away. Majestic abode in the sky above, and his dwelling place. So we're still talking about the heights. Continue.
He is our God, there is none else. He is truly our King, none is like him. As is written in the Torah, know this day and reflect on it, because Adonai is our God in the sky above and the earth below, there is none else.
Oh, thank God they brought him down. He's also here. He's not just there, he is here. By the way, who will object to this language? Lots of us.
Earthly kings.
We don't like the masculinity of God. So now you have different prayer books, and God is also appears in a feminine language. So how many people were bothered by his and him? Anyone? No. Yeah, you.
Oh,
Yeah. It doesn't bother you. Because it doesn't matter what language we use, God is God.
Or he's a him or a her.
Okay. But it's really depressing, some feminists in our communities, totally.
But in an older tradition, which would be me,
You mean the tradition that you don't use here anymore? When it says older tradition, we are not using it here anymore.
but in that tradition of language, English uses masculine as the default gender neutral.
Yeah.
Which many people don't agree with, but that's the convention of the language.
So here's the difference with Judaism. We have he, u, and e, she. So we have completely the ability in Hebrew to speak in both levels. But it doesn't stop the feminist theologians to express difficulties with this. Okay.
Could I say something?
Yeah,
about
please, of course.
The part that bothers me is the distance that God is somewhere else, which is how I grew up feeling about God. Is that God is
Far away.
way far away.
Yeah.
And so gradually over time, it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's different thought about this, that God is
But this is
omnipresent here, which is
But this is extremely biblical notion. God was on the top of Mount Sinai, far away, and only one prophet was able to see him face to face. So why would I even worry about? I mean, that's the biblical piece. Nowadays, now there was a price to pay for bringing him down. God as a friend. Now the language is so human in describing God because we really did not like the far away God, but we made him too close to us now. We went to another extreme. God sitting on my shoulder and tells me what to do. God is so close in some of the language from the worship books.
So it takes the divinity out of it, you mean? Is that what you're saying?
I think I have a challenge when God becomes our friend that is willing to accept whatever we do. I need the awe. I need the fear a little bit to be left there. In the traditional prayer books, there is a lot more awe, but the awe is coming from fear. That fear is gone. No one wants to be afraid of God. We want God to always do what we want to do. So there is a very delicate dialectic tension between the God that we are creating in our mind that we want, and maybe the God that it's impossible, untouchable, unknowable, far away, something that we cannot comprehend. I think it will be taking pictures now. After I warn you with the mafia, now I'm really worried about my relationship to you. Oh my God, she took pictures. That's why they start. They take pictures and they kill you in the street. Okay. Just kidding. What about that? How is the distance that you feel from your God or from the God we share? What will happen when all three faith communities get to the location and then we start talking about it? Because the Muslim one, I felt in my conversation and understanding Islam, it's far. He's far. Some people will describe him as close, but how the closeness comes as a result in Judaism, as a result of fulfilling the commandments. I can feel God's closeness as a result of the obligations, the yoke that is put upon me to fulfill the commandments. Back to Kraft from New England. Wow. Commandment number 7, it's so easy, but so hard. So easy and so hard. Commandment 7, if you don't know, that's the adultery. The one Clinton missed. Is just a cigar. Yeah. Okay. Now comes what? You have to ask permission for pictures. No, I'm just okay. Continue, please. You're doing such a good job with your voice.
Adonai, our God, we therefore hope soon to see your majestic glory, to remove idols from the earth so that the false gods will be destroyed, to perfect the world under the Almighty's kingdom, so that all will call on your name and to turn all the wicked of the earth toward you.
Okay, so now talking about God in this language makes it farther. And what is their request? To do what?
Perfect the world.
Perfect the world and remove all the idols. Which, by the way, this is definitely biblical language. Because what is the war of the prophets in the Bible? Constantly. Under every, what? One God. But they are describing the behavior on the part of the Israelites and they imitated what the nations around them used to do. Under every green tree, they build an altar to another god. This is, what did they saw this in the Greek, with the Greeks, on the top of the Olympus, and the gods that come up. I mean, if you read some of the writings about the flood in different traditions, you go to the Greek mythology, and what is the reason that the flood started in the Greek mythology? No evil at all.
War between Neptune and, I don't remember.
Okay, but the gods were sleeping in the afternoon. They were snoozing in the afternoon. There was too much noise down there, and as a result, they brought the flood. That's the text in some of the documents that we have from that period, from the Greek mythology. Capricious individuals that God, semi-God, they also have sex with human beings, which of course appears in chapter 6 in Genesis. And chapter 6 in Genesis, again, still before the flood, some of the angels come down and procreate with human women. And of course, a chapter after, the flood comes. So all of the first 6, 7 chapters in Genesis are all commentary or theology that is against the theologies and the behavior of what the Israelites saw among the other nations that they live among. What else is going on? They're building a Tower of Babel, which is nice. The company that uses Babel now to teach languages, brilliant. So, what was the purpose of the tower? Why did they build tower? What was the necessity of building a tower?
Get closer to God, right?
To wage a war on God. They wanted to climb the tower and be able to engage in fighting against this deity in heaven. Also, it was good for them to have a tower so they can find where everyone goes to. I mean, they were worried about dispersing all over the earth. So if I build a tower, I know where I need to go back. So you have a lot of explanations to the tower, but the tower was this moment when if I climb up, I can get rid of this one deity. So you have a lot of the first few chapters of Genesis is a theology that is slowly becoming pure Jewish against all the theologies that existed around, or the traditions or the customs. Okay, so look what they're saying here. I want all the false gods to be destroyed. By the way, nothing changed. We still have false gods. Anyone would like to mention few false gods in our lives?
Money, power,
Money, power,
fear.
what?
Fear.
Fear? Wow.
We made that one.
Materialism, yeah, I mean, my God. I think we have the same amount of idols that we had in biblical time now. They come up with different names, different way of disguising themselves. But they are the same. And the question is, the request from God to destroy all of them, it's not working. Because who needs to destroy those idols? We need to find all those false gods that are appearing not every day, few of them. And how do you push it back? How do you overcome them? How do you destroy them? We need God's help for this. Go on. Verse 6.
May all the inhabitants of the world realize and know that to you every knee must bow down, every tongue swear allegiance. Adonai, our God, before you they will bow down and fall and honor your glorious name, and they will all accept the yoke of your kingdom, that you might rule over them soon and forever.
Oh, what a sweet wish on the part of the stupid believer. Now you see why this is the final prayer. I want to walk out of the synagogue, or I want to walk into my life trying to be optimistic and knowing that this will never happen. This ability to recite a prayer day after day and knowing that it will never happen. Again, those two ideas that I need to live with and try as much as I can to create a world that is depleted of all those false gods. Continue.
For the kingdom is yours, and to the end of eternity you will rule in glory, as is written in your Torah.
Yeah, it's written in your Torah, God, for God's sake. How about reading it? It's there. It's your creation. What are you? Someone else wrote it? Oh my God. Go on.
As is written in your Torah, Adonai will rule forever. And it has been said, Adonai will become king over the entire earth. On that day, Adonai shall be one, and his name shall be one.
And so the musical notation for that phrase, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad. Back to the echad of the Shema. This is how you close the circle now. It's still always about the oneness, the uniqueness of God. So it sounds like a march in a beer basement in Germany. Listen. Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. So look at the Hebrew, the last line of the Hebrew. Bayom hahu, on that day, Yeh Adonai echad, God will become one, and his name will be echad. Actually, that's the name, another name of God in Jewish tradition. Echad, the one. Yeah, Sharon.
Question.
Yeah, please.
In the phrase Adonai will rule forever, the Hebrew word for rule, does it have multiple meanings, or I'm just curious about the word rule.
Yeah. It's the word is timloch, melech. It comes from the root melech, which is king. In Hebrew, melech, imloch, timloch. It comes from ruling, as a king rules his kingdom. Remember in the Bible, the conversation, so the Israelites did not have kings. Where did they pick up king from? If God is the king, what do you need a king? So they looked around and they saw that every other nation has a king. So they come to the prophet, and this is before Saul. King Saul was the first king of the Jews. What a mistake. He had a mood swings the rest of his, he was so depressed that he needed to invite David to play music to help him come out of his depression. By the way, it's unbelievable to take all the characters in the Bible and put them on a couch. No, I'm saying it in the most seriousness, because they are frail, they're human, they are us. And of course, what is King Saul doing with David? He throws the spear to try to kill him because he already knows that David will be the next king. And he chases David for many years. It's amazing to make those Bible stories come alive. That's how one needs to read the Bible, with the help of a psychiatrist. Yeah, they're all messed up. It's written by humans that carry the same illnesses and joys that we have. But they gave us something. I think it was written with us in their eyes. They knew that what they're living, this document, is going to help us. Sometimes we don't know how to get to the help. But there was something larger than we can imagine took place, because they didn't write it just for themselves. That's how I look at this, and that's what gives me comfort. There were people thousands of years ago that wrote a document and left the best possible inheritance by doing it. And we're going to explore this. This is why I'm so excited for you guys to move next to us so we can hug you and you can kick us when we are not behaving. What?
Likewise.
Well, I'll be a little bit slow in kicking. I got the honor of having a room there, so why would I be?
It's not that great.
Room with a door.
There's a door and a window, but it looks out onto a wall.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll take. The gift is so generous on your part. Totally. Okay. So now comes the second page. Now what happens is, and this time you'll see the longer those books were written, the more the author helps in writing the expertise of each of the scholars. So I remind you again, there are 7 to 8 scholars, and now you'll see next to the name of the scholar their specialty. So you have, of course, always the Bible guy on the top. After a while, you get used to finding the scholars in the right places. So they have the Bible in the top. Then you have the theology, Dorf, who is a theology. Then you have the bottom, Ellison, who is involved in modern liturgy. So the contribution was David Ellison, who was the president of my seminary. He retired. I brought him 3 times to Omaha because it was amazing scholarship that he provided. Understanding the prayer book is crucial to the development of the Jew. And then you have on the other column Frankel, a woman voice. And then you have Gray, a new scholar that was edited to the other books, and she is on Talmud. Why is it important to bring a Talmudic scholar? What is a Talmud?
It's all the commentary.
So I have to use my hands. You know, that's how we talk with the hands. We in Italians. Take a picture, another picture now. I think all Italians talk with hands. That's what the Jews learn. Anyway, so you have the Bible, okay, that's the first text. You have, even before the Bible, you have manuscripts that are floating here. And then you have the Mishnah. Mishnah is taking all of the laws in the Bible and putting them in a more organized tractates. And we have six tractates to the Mishnah. Mishnah means, again, to study, to learn. And then comes the Talmud. You have 2 Talmuds. You have a Talmud that was created in Babylonia, and you have the Palestinian Talmud that was created by Jews that stayed in Palestine. So not everyone left in the first exile. The first exile brought people to Babylonia, but not all of them left. So there was a community, a small community, a very poor community in Palestine. And then you had the majority of the Jews that went to Babylonia and were able to reach a level, amazing level scholarships because there were communities. So that's the Talmud. So what's the Talmud? The Talmud had a lot more volumes than the 6. So the Talmud takes the 6 tractate and open them up, develops them into a more comprehensive way of understanding God's law. So for example, there is a tractate in the Mishnah that deals with women obligations. So women marriages, women divorces, so that's women. By the time they get to the Talmud, you have 600 years of living with that tractate. But living doesn't mean that there are no difficulties. I don't know, I'll tell you for the first time, you never heard it before. Living has difficulties. So where do I solve the difficulties? I solve it in the Talmud. So the Talmud are discussions of rabbis, every page. Both the winning voice and the losing voice. That's why the Talmud has so many tractates, because you have to put all the losing stuff. And so pages of discussions among rabbis about what a woman is allowed to do, what she is not allowed to do, what happens if she hates the husband, what professions the husband cannot have if they want to keep the marriage alive. So you can be a camel driver because you have a special stink and smell about you when you work. So don't be surprised if she wants a divorce. I'm just giving you one example. There are millions of discussions about things that you cannot even imagine that need discussion. When the husband can divorce his wife? Well, the dish, you burn the dish, she's out. No, you can't get her out because she ruined one meal. So that's how the discussion goes on. So from the 613 commandments, you still have more, I hope, battery. From 613 commandments, they're the ones that are being dealt with in the Mishnah and in the Talmud. And so the Mishnah was written in 200 CE, was canonized in 200 CE, and the Talmud was canonized in 600 CE. So 400 years between 2 and 6 of Jewish living with the commandments and struggling and making them human. I mean, you take commandments from the Bible that are one line. When you sow seeds in your field, don't mix different seeds. It's one line in the Bible. That line in the Bible becomes 40 lines in the Mishnah. By the time it gets to the Talmud, it's 20,000 lines. Why? Because you have a living. You have to constantly, that's what you do with the American, what is Supreme Court in America? You know who have the best time with the Talmud? Lawyers. Because the thinking of a lawyer is the same thinking that is going on in the Talmud. Those kind of discussions and precedents, and you can do this. And this is the ruling from this rabbi. But wait a minute, a rabbi 300 miles away said something else. You bring those rulings together. You try to work it out. So that's the code. The Talmud is the code of human living. Now, liberal Jews, my Jews, Reform Jews, progressive Jews, said, throw the Talmud out. I'm not interested in the Talmud and the rulings and the commandments. I'm interested in prophetic Judaism. What did the prophet say to me? Oh, the prophet said to me that you should not oppress the poor person. So you need to pay, there's a line in the Bible that says, you need to pay a daily laborer his salary at the end of the day. You don't send him home and say, I'll give you the check in 3 months. That's what my people, my liberal understanding of Judaism is. We cared about what the prophet said. So we call it prophetic Judaism. Liberal Judaism basically is more interested in the prophetic messages of the Bible and a lot less interested in if I'm eating ham and cheese. That's why the Orthodox make fun of us. The Orthodox Jews call us not Jews. That's why, for example, when my sister had to get married in Jerusalem, not had, she did it voluntarily. She loved the husband. When she married in Jerusalem, I was there at a synagogue, Orthodox synagogue, because there's no separation of church and state in Israel. The church is Orthodox Judaism. And she said, can my brother recite a prayer? My brother is a rabbi. What kind of a rabbi? Well, he is a liberal rabbi. No, there's no room for him in my synagogue. So those are things that you're going to learn as a result of being in relationship with us. It is possible that maybe you made a mistake and you should join a tri-faith with the Orthodox community. No, it's not a mistake. They're not interested in this. Orthodox Judaism, I will say something here, they like to circle their own wagons. They're not interested in a conversation with you. Oh, they'll be very comfortable in loving you and invite you and talk to you. But as a theology, why do I have to be connected to a Christian? So you cannot imagine how much shit I got at the beginning of this. It'll be nice one day to write about it. But they came to me and said, are you crazy? Why aren't you doing tri-faith with us? Us meaning Orthodox Judaism or conservative Judaism. because I can't do it with you. You guys don't like us. You like us as Jews. We like similar things like Israel and God, but we have a whole different understanding. My God is not Orthodox. My rabbinate is not your rabbinate, I said to the rabbi, the Orthodox rabbi. Because when a woman walks on Friday with a chicken in her hand to ask you if the chicken is kosher or not, you will definitely examine the chicken to see if there's no piece of metal in the chicken that makes it not kosher. I, on the other hand, will look if the person can afford another chicken. And so my ruling will be a ruling about how she looks and if she can afford it. We're in a different place. Wow, that was a long speech. By the way, this was the same here. I'm sure some Christian denominations hated the fact that you guys are going with the Jews and the Muslims. Yeah. We are crazy that religion can bring us to really not communicate. We need to create a new religion. At the site, there will be a new religion created. I'm convinced. We're getting a lot of interest around town. We're getting people, as I can talk about the synagogue, we're getting people that were not at all religious, Jewish religious. Wow, tell me more about this. We're spending time talking to people about this. And I'm sure this is happening here too. You guys lamented how many people you lost. You cannot imagine how many people are going to join you. Maybe including some people that left you. Yeah. That's what happened in Methodist. Do you remember Jimmy Creech?
Yeah.
On the First Methodist Church across the way from Temple, Israel?
Yeah.
Okay, so It happened. People left in anger. Some of them were there, back there. Maybe they paid attention to what they did. Maybe they didn't like what they did. There was a wonderful, every once in a while there is this meeting of the press club. So the press club, I remember because Mike Kelly told me this. At the press club, they have humor, they have jokes that they do once a year, and they tell the jokes and everyone laughs. So immediately after what happened with Jimmy Creech, they said the following. Here's the difference between Christians and Jews. When Rabbi Azriel did the commitment ceremony and the gay wedding, after the wedding they went to eat. In the church, they left the church without celebrating. So that was the kind of humor that was introduced there. Anyway.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
The Methodist Church, I know this from denominational stuff, not from them saying it. Their associate minister, or I'm not sure what her title is, Cynthia, is a United Church of Christ minister.
What is she doing there?
We didn't
They gave
have
her
a
a
job
job.
at the time she was.
They gave her a job.
Originally, Jane Florence, who was the senior pastor
Of course, I
at
know.
Methodist, knew that she couldn't do same-gender weddings
Right.
without being censored by the.
What a cop-out. What a cop-out. So they invited a
So
minister.
she talked them into letting her hire the associate pastor at her choice rather than by appointment. So she hired a UCC pastor who would not.
That does the dirty job for her. Oh, God, it's so appalling.
The new pastor has now told her she can't do that, so,
Oh, really?
yeah.
So the Temple Israel board,
Huh? Yeah.
before hiring the rabbi, told him, this is what we do here. We do gay marriages, and we do interfaith marriages. Do you want to come?
Well,
A lot more practical than using a scapegoat to do this stuff for you. Oh my
But
God.
I started saying, I didn't know that the First Methodist had pulled out of this, but there is a whole, what do they call them in the Methodist Church? They have,
A general conference.
is it
Yes.
in state conference and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
They have a whole
It's a national. It's
national, they have a
international.
whole level of state association, whatever, anyway, that are normally geographical, but they do have one that is,
National.
they have several national things for Native American associated and that sort of thing. And they have one that are affiliated, well, maybe that's us that has it, that are affiliated churches that have specifically affiliated while still remaining Methodist, but they've affiliated formally with the United Church of Christ so they can get around the national rule because the nationals won't give it up.
I
And
know,
the
I
individual
know.
churches don't want that, so.
Yeah, you guys have a lot more problems than the Jews.
So we-
I think this is so bizarre.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense that I will hire a minister that does something that I don't do. Are we working in the same church?
It's
What's going on?
polity. It's whether you're hierarchical or.
Yeah, I was just told they had the special conference that's happening this week to decide on the national issue, but yeah.
I cannot wait to see the news. I cannot.
And it's international. That's one of the.
Okay.
Rabbi, I
Yeah.
have a question. Does Temple Israel do interfaith marriages?
Yes.
How long has that been?
Well, I started, they invited me to be the rabbi 30 years ago, and they told me, we don't do interfaith marriages. I didn't have any problem, because that was my policy, individual policy. And then I will say interfaith marriages started about 10 years ago. And also the gay lesbian marriages started early. Actually, I had less issues of marrying two Jewish gay or lesbian than I had interfaith. So the interfaith is a later stage in my development as a rabbi. But everything was with a serious study and learning that took place months before we got to a decision. And then the rabbi's role in a reform movement, we don't have any. There's no chief reform rabbi, thank God. There are two chief Orthodox rabbis in Israel, a Sephardic rabbi and Ashkenazi rabbi, because they disagree about everything. It's crazy, crazy.
So among Reform rabbis, it's an individual choice?
It is individual, but the synagogues can dictate what they want. I mean, in Denver, for example, 70% of all marriages are interfaith marriages. For the Denver synagogue to hire a rabbi that doesn't want to do it means the death of a synagogue. So, I mean, it's something that needs to be.
So is your congregation
It's not
involved in
mine.
that?
It's not mine anymore.
Well,
It was never mine. It was yours. No. I think it's important to understand the language. It was never my congregation. It was the board of the congregation. Okay, sorry.
Well, were they involved in the discussion? In the
Oh,
decision?
absolutely. They hated it because I forced them to come to studies.
Okay.
We went for a few months studying those issues, both the gay and the interfaith. And by the way, interfaith, I mean, I still have, and you'll find other rabbis that do interfaith marriages that have different criteria or stipulation about. So I have not done, until the next wedding that the two of us are doing, Chris and I have never done a wedding with a Christian minister. So I'm working on this now because sometime in November, Chris, November 9th, we have a wedding. And we're going to do it together. And so we are talking about the language. We're talking about, I mean, it's a wonderful experience to be able to delve into this and to check your positions and figuring it out, because we want couples to be happy and get married. Because those are children that grew up in our synagogue or on a church. And what are we doing? We're telling them, you can be happy, but there are always stipulations. So for example, the conversation about how the kids are going to be raised. Did we discuss that already? Not yet. Yeah, we. What? They have to talk about this. Yeah, it's amazing how many topics couples don't talk until they get married, and then suddenly after they're getting married, this storm inside. We want this early, the conversation. So it'll be great.
Where are they getting married?
They're getting married on the ground of the tri-faith.
Oh, okay.
And by then you guys are there, so you can escape the conversation. Yeah, it'll be interesting how some religious rulings will be affected by the geographical move. I'm living it there without opening, unpacking it. Okay, the Bible. Who would like to read the Bible? The top of the page. Come on.
We must praise, the first paragraph of Aleinu.
Aleinu. So the name of the prayer is Aleinu. Upon us. Aleinu means upon us. Again, the closing prayer in the prayer book.
Okay, so the
Go
first
on.
paragraph of Aleinu, until none else, is post-biblical, but modeled after biblical prayer in that it is filled with biblical motifs and couched in biblical styles, such as constant parallelism, where, as here, the second half of each line mirrors the first.
Okay, now you.
Okay. Who did not make us, as in biblical
So
texts.
he's saying most of the motifs in the prayer, and we discovered already, are biblical, about all the false gods, those kind of things. Go on.
Who did not make us, as in biblical texts. The sense is not Jewish superiority, but the Jews' gratitude for being shown how to worship the one proper God.
Okay, you see the problem of the Jew?
Yeah.
Immediately apologizing in case someone
Somebody-
reads this and say, oh, this is part of the chosenness. Even scholars have difficulty talking about this. It makes us uncomfortable when you come to us and tell us, oh, you guys are part of the chosen people. We don't know what to do when you tell us this. I mean, we don't know how to accept the compliment. Well, There's always confusion on the face of a Jew when you say this. Try this. You have so many Jewish friends, thank God. Tell them, what a gift you guys have. You guys are chosen. Oh my God. You will see a person in front of you, completely confused, dumbfounded, not really knowing what to respond. Instead of saying, thank you, they will try to escape from this blessing you're giving them. We have difficulty with this, especially in America. We think that everyone is the same, that all of us are blessed. Just put it in the back of your mind. Next time when you go to Linda,
Our Monday thing?
no, I don't know Monday thing. Teacher, she's a teacher, Linda.
Oh, Patton.
Linda Patton.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, you don't know